So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Spider-Man x Naruto x Harem. So let's start the series. But now he was stuck onto a metal paling of an incomplete construction site, webbed down by Venom, while the Sandman's powerful sand fist hammered down onto him. He was dying, he knew it. Strength had already left him. His breath was labored, and it appeared that his best friend, Harry, had not stepped in to save him. It wasn't supposed to be this way. He was Spider-Man, the hope of all the people who lived in Grand City, the hero who would always save the damsel in distress. Rito Parker grinned feebly as he saw a flash of green at the edge of his field of vision. Harry, the new goblin, had arrived. It was too late for him, but maybe Mary Jane could still be rescued. As his companion strained for his last breath, he yelled, "Save MJ!" The Sandman's massive fist rushed at him, and he was left with no further information. Both dying and waking up were weird experiences. He saw dazzling lights above him, but everything else was hazy. Wah! Rito halted as a thin, high howl escaped his lips. He had intended to say what the devil was going on, but all that came out was a weak, unnatural wail. Rito tried to turn his head but was unable to do so for long. He could only see that he was in a wooden cot of some sort. When he attempted to raise his hands, he froze in disbelief at the two small, plump, baby-like hands that waved in front of him. He knew that these were his hands because he was the one in charge of them. "Shah!" Rito exclaimed in terror as he realized that he had somehow turned into a baby. Rito tried to think of all the possible outcomes while cursing in every language he knew, but all that came out of his mouth were baby gurgles. He thought back to his battle with the Sandman and Venom. He was certain that he had perished, so why was he here now as a baby? He had never been particularly religious, but he was not completely ignorant of it either. Some religions claimed to believe in reincarnation, but that didn't make sense because, in those religions, a person would have forgotten about his previous life and started over in his new one. In his head, a voice murmured, "You are different." Rito exclaimed, "Wah!" when something scurried over his face. His tiny hands were unable to remove the irritating object. Rito's eyes went to the tiny black spider sitting on his nose as a dark item appeared. The voice, which Rito was certain was that of the spider, said, "You are one of the chosen one and your trial has begun." Before Rito could ask what it meant, the spider vanished into a puff of black smoke, and his cot started to shake as an outside force struggled outside the building. Although his vision wasn't the best right now, he could still hear screams and the sounds of fighting outside, and then he heard terrified babies crying one by one all around him. Rito couldn't see above his cot, but he was certain that he was in some kind of nursery. A few moments later, a frantic, blonde-haired lady appeared over his cot. Upon noticing that he was not sobbing, she stepped aside. Based on her noises, Rito thought she was soothing the other infants. When he was unable to grasp the language being used, he scowled. The nurse, or whatever she was, had left the room when a sharp, masculine voice suddenly erupted in the room, yelling what sounded like an order. The babies started to cry in terror, but no one stepped in this time. His spider senses had gone off multiple times, which Rito Parker was thankful for because it meant he still had some of his spider powers even though the webbing and spider strength seemed to have left him. Rito Parker had never felt so helpless in his life. He was still a baby, could hardly move his hand, and something was going on outside the building. He was unsure of how long he waited, but it was long enough that the baby's cries had become thin, sharp, and hoarse, and that he lost control of his bladder and let a warm liquid spill into his diapers. Rito struggled in his wet diapers, and he was now certain that he did not enjoy being a baby. With the sound of combat raging outside, he finally lost the ability to open his weary eyelids and fell into a deep, restful sleep. His wooden cot was shaking violently when he opened his eyes, and a blond man with blood and scratches on his face appeared to have been through hell. The man placed another sleeping child next to him and spoke in a strange language that Rito could not understand. All he could make out were the words Naruto, which, based on the man's delivery, seemed to be the name of the baby who was sharing his cot. The man then sagged over the cot, his face going pale. Raito could see the sorrowful smile on his face despite the fact that he was dead. Fear took hold of him. What in the world possibly be going on outside? But at that moment, he became aware that the sounds of combat had stopped. As the infant started to weep pathetically, as though he understood instinctively that someone dear to him had passed away, he turned his head to face his neighbor. This marked the start of Raito Parker's new existence in Hyde Ninja Village. He was still a weak baby and later a toddler who had to rely on the adults for food, but the first 4 years had been hell. He also learned more about the world he was in, and by the time he was 4 years old, he realized he was no longer on Earth. In part, this was because he had gradually picked up the strange language that the adults spoke during his first 3 years of life. When a group of performing ninjas arrived at the house to entertain the kids during a festival, Raito was able to understand their conversations, but most of the spoken sentences didn't make sense. They had used a variety of hand seals to accomplish a number of impossible feats, such as conjuring water clones of themselves and instantly disappearing and resurfacing elsewhere. The matron patiently explained that they were ninjas who could manipulate core energy to accomplish these impossible feats. He had asked the matron in a childish voice how they could create walls out of the earth or summon fire dragons, which were things that the people of Earth could not do but that the people of this world seemed to be able to do. Another child then raised more questions, but the matron scornfully ignored him. Raito turned to see that it was Neru, the infant who had been in his cot the night he was born. For some reason, the adults at the house treated the youngster with disdain and contempt, even though Raito had never witnessed Neru do anything to merit it. The other kids gradually started treating the youngster with the same degree of disdain and contempt that the adults had shown. Knowing and detesting his reliance on the adults in the house, Raito had discreetly avoided him. He knew that he couldn't upset them, at least not while he was still unable to defend himself. As a result, he had kept a close eye on Neru, playing with him when no one else would and giving him leftovers from his own dinner whenever the adults tried to punish him for any slights he had committed against them by denying him dinner. When Raito discovered a group of 5-year-old bullies swarming around Neru, who was playing alone at the time, the matron took one look and left the room without turning around. But Raito saw the thinly veiled satisfaction on her face as she did so. The bullies then started to kick and punch the 4-year-old who was crouching on the floor and whimpering, and the other toddlers watched the scene with a healthy dose of fear that they would be the next to be singled out. Raito's eyes tightened as he picked up a play block and thumped one of the boys on the head. "Stop that!" Raito yelled, disregarding caution. Over the course of the 3 years, he discovered that he was gradually regaining his strength and endurance. Although he wasn't particularly strong, his little 3-year-old body had the strength and power of a 6-year-old, which was sufficient to break one of the bullies' heads with his flying block. His eyesight had also improved, giving him unwavering accuracy as he started hurling whatever toys he could find at the bullies. The bullies screamed and scurried to dodge his flying projectiles, which struck them with excruciating thumps. However, Raito quickly ran out of toys. He watched in fear as the bruised bullies approached him menacingly, and he got up, his little fist curled into a ball, ready to fight. The odds were against him, as he was alone and 4 bullies larger and stronger than him combined. He was crying, and his face and arms were bruised, but he was determined. The first bully to reach him raised a fist to strike at him, so Raito braced himself to duck and was shocked when a white blur tackled the bully to the ground. He looked into Neru's serious eyes as he picked himself up from the bully. "You my friend," Neru uttered in plain English. Raito was astonished and somewhat moved when he looked at Neru. Like the majority of toddlers, Neru could only talk in fragmented sentences and their cognitive processes were still developing. Raito was an exception, and the people at the home took great pride in his command of spoken language. Raito brushed Neru's hair with her outstretched hand. "We fight," he added, aware that Neru was still likely unsure of the definition of the word. He threw himself at the bullies, and Neru's face lit up with empathy as he followed suit. However, their perseverance did not assist them, especially since there were 4 bullies who were tougher than them. By the time the matron returned, Raito had multiple bruises and a broken lip, and Nurtu had a black eye. The 4 bullies, on the other hand, had not fared any better, with the majority of them suffering from injuries. As the matron approached, Raito stood guard over Nurtu. The matron briefly glanced at their shattered bodies and a flash of emotion appeared on her face. Uncertainty, guilt, and a hint of self-loathing. She had remained silent, but as she gathered up the hurt kids and started tending to their injuries, the matron's treatment of Nurtu changed. Instead of giving him icy looks or disgusted looks, she avoided him most of the time, as though he were a bad memory that would never be forgotten. The bullies also stopped bothering Raito and Nurtu, and that's how the friendship between Nurtu and Raito started. After 2 months, Raito watched the elderly man who had come to see Nurtu with interest. He was the only adult who had shown Nurtu affection and care, and although he had seen him at the house a few times previously, this was the first time he had paid attention to the man. Before starting to draw again, Raito kept a close eye on the elderly man to make sure he wouldn't be mistreated by the grown-ups in the house, who also treated him with respect by calling him Hokurage, a word he still didn't understand. Raito seized the opportunity to do something clever once more when the matron gave them pencils and paper, and he went on to sketch the people and objects he recalled from his time in New York. Raito was going crazy pretending to be a regular 4-year-old playing with the play blocks, and he hoped that the adults would eventually let him read the books and scrolls in the house library. The adults, in particular, had praised his intricate and well-drawn drawings and labeled him a young prodigy. A voice behind him remarked, "That's a very nice picture, though a very strange bridge." The elderly man who had wandered over was smiled at by Raito, who was holding the man's hand. "It's a bridge," Raito declared. He had sketched the Golden Gate Bridge, and although he had never been there, he had seen enough images of it to recall it. He could still recall Mary Jane telling him that she hoped to go to San Francisco with him someday, but that is obviously no longer possible. "One made of metal from what I can tell from the picture," the elderly gentleman thought. "I am not sure if that would be possible, but you have quite the idea, don't you?" "I love drawing," Raito shrugged, adding, "but the matron wouldn't let me read too." The elderly gentleman peered into his eyes and then laughed. "Ah, a child eager for knowledge, that's rare. I'll speak with the matron for you. I think she's just afraid you'll mess up the books and scrolls. Books and scrolls are hard to get for a house, you know." Raito hurriedly responded, "I'll take care of them, I promise." The elderly man leaned over and said, "Very well then, I'll hold you to the promise," as though asking a question. "I heard you are Nurtu's friend?" he said in a whisper. "He is my friend," Raito said, nodding as Nurtu gave him a bashful glance. "Ah, good, good," the elderly man said with a satisfied nod. "You looked mature for your age. Will you take care of Nurtu for me?" Raito vowed, "I'll," feeling as though he had somehow passed a test. After 3 years, Nurtu murmured, "Raito, hurry, I think the show's starting," as they crept around the house's walls. Since it was their birthdays today, Raito's mind strayed to the date of another of his birthdays and he shook his head rapidly. But the past was the past. Nurtu had proposed that they sneak out to observe the yearly celebration, which the kids in the house were never permitted to attend and which commemorated the destruction of the Kyuubi, a 9-tailed fox demon with unfathomable powers. Raito still recalled how the matron had told them the story while displaying hand-drawn images of the 4th headmaster, who had looked remarkably familiar. In fact, every time he looked at the images of the 4th headmaster, his mind was brought back to the blonde man who had passed away after abandoning Nurtu in his crib. The 4th headmaster was the one who had used his life to defeat it. Raito couldn't get rid of the feeling that the 4th headmaster looked a lot like him, even though the matron said that the man couldn't have been him because the 4th headmaster had died out in the battlefield. In addition, the 3rd headmaster would frequently visit Nurtu to see how he was doing. Of course, he now knew that the headmasters were the highest-ranking ninjas in the village of Hyde Ninja Village, and he couldn't help but wonder what his relationship was with the third headmaster. Since they were just 7 years old, any kind of trouble could arise in the middle of the night in unfamiliar streets. Nurtu, maybe we shouldn't, Raito replied, attempting to be the more rational one. Come on, Raito, we've never been to a festival before. Matron brought the other kids to them last year, but not us, said Nurtu. Raito hesitated. It was true that the matron had declined to take Nurtu to the festival, and Raito had chosen to stay with his friend instead. This was also one of the reasons Raito was afraid to attend the festival alone, because most of the adults seemed to dislike him for some reason that Raito could never comprehend, and the matron, who no longer detested Nurtu, had appeared concerned about taking him. Raito had stayed with Nurtu over the years because he was a hyper but courteous child who didn't have the same vengeful tendencies as some of the other kids in the house. In fact, on their 6th birthday, they exchanged a ceremony under the willow tree behind the house, making them blood brothers to Nurtu. Raito rushed after his sworn brother, shouting, "All right, but let's be careful, okay? Nurtu, wait for me." Oh. Nurtu and Raito pushed through the masses, staring at everyone and everything in wonder. The festival was unlike any other they had ever seen, with stalls offering food and goods, a large number of people, and wandering ninjas performing various stunts. As they sat on a location on a fence, Nurtu exclaimed, "This is great! We should come out again next year." Raito narrowed his eyes at the strange stares some of the villagers were giving them, but he ignored them because they didn't bother the two of them. Raito and Nurtu stood on the fence for hours, watching some itinerant ninjas perform in the village square. Raito was in awe of what they were capable of, and the people of this world were truly remarkable. Only after they made the decision to sneak back to their homes did Raito realize something was amiss. They were strolling through a quiet area of the town when they heard shouts and rushing feet behind them. Raito's spider sense activated, and he took Nurtu's arm and fled. As Raito dragged Nurtu along with him, Nurtu exclaimed, "Raito, why are we running?" Without pausing, Raito stated, "I can sense that something is off." After all the years they had spent together, Nurtu trusted Raito's intuition and sped up his legs. He knew that Raito would always have a sixth sense when something negative was about to happen. Behind them, a crowd of irate and inebriated villagers appeared, and someone exclaimed, "There he is! That's the fox bastard!" Someone yelled, "Demon!" Raito grabbed Nurtu and stepped aside as a glass alcohol bottle crashed into the road next to them. The man in charge of the crowd yelled, "He's with another brat. They're together. Demons in cohort. Get them!" Both Nurtu and Raito gulped as they attempted to flee. Raito could have managed to do so, but Nurtu, who was only 7 years old, had the power and endurance to hold off the crowd for very long. Nurtu cried out as something violently crashed into his back, sending him to the ground. As the crowd surged ahead, someone exclaimed, "The fox brat is down! Get him!" Unaware of what was happening, Raito bitterly positioned himself in front of Nurtu in order to buy time for Nurtu to flee. "Nurtu, get up quickly. We have to run," he said, but before he could finish, the crowd slammed into him with wine bottles and wooden clubs. Raito defeated them with icy efficiency. Although his strength had increased over the years, he was still not as strong as he was as Spider-Man. His agility was his only defense, but even that was insufficient against a horde of irate villagers, and he was knocked backwards by powerful blows. Raito felt sick to his stomach as Nurtu screamed in agony behind him. A sizable percentage of the crowd had gathered to kick and punch him. How could the villagers do this? They were only kids. Everything turned red, and Raito yelled angrily, "Get off Nurtu!" He had never felt so angry and powerless. Raito used all of his effort to push at the villagers, knocking a few to the ground as he suddenly gained strength. One of them held up a glass bottle, threatening to crash it down on him, and Raito automatically extended his hand in a futile attempt to protect it. Snark! Raito drew back his hands and saw the tiny, hardly perceptible webbing flaps that had developed on his wrists. His webbings are back. Raito blinked at the sound of the webbing that had shot out of his right wrist and into his attacker's eye. The man stumbled as the webbing blinded him. All of his spider abilities have returned. Unfortunately, his strength was based on his age and physical characteristics. Raito glared at his assailants, but at least he now had a weapon to use against the crowd. His spider senses screamed, and Raito quickly twisted around, but not before something heavy slammed into him. Raito crashed into the ground with a painful cry as one of the villagers landed on top of him and held him down onto the ground. He then proceeded to pull the remaining villagers from Neru with his webbings after shooting a webbing to tangle the legs of several of them, sending them tumbling down. When the guy made a hand seal and slammed his hand into Raito's chest, he gasped and all of his strength instantly fled him as he fell on the ground motionless. "You're with the fox demon, your life ends here," he shouted, his eyes filled with frenzy. Raito could smell the alcohol in his breath. Raito could only watch helplessly as the man pinned him down with one hand while holding a knife in the other. He heard Neru yelling in pain to his left, so he used what little strength he had left to turn his head and saw his pale, wounded face through a gap in the crowd as a knife cut down at him. He was about to die, and this time Neru would also go with him. However, he refused to end his life without a struggle, refusing to die like a helpless little child. Anger erupted inside of him, a fire that burned through him. Then a voice spoke. "Do you want to be a chosen one with power?" He could hear the voice in his head, and it was both soothing and frightening. Although Raito lacked the strength to talk, he could still express his feelings in other ways. Raito cried in his head, "Give me the ability to defend my friends. I want to live." Even though Raito knew he was going to die, his humanity gave him hope that someone would hear his pleas and save them. Time seemed to slow down as he saw the ninja on top of him slash down with his knife. The speaker then said, "I grant you your wish." The knife pierced Raito's chest and then, boom! The ninja was thrown off Raito by something big and black that materialized behind him. It then went on to ravage the rest of the crowd. 2 little boys were bleeding to death. A gigantic black spider was watching over them, and numerous seriously hurt villagers and ninja were strewn throughout the streets when the military police came. After throwing several villagers into jail and depriving one chunin of his rank before sending him to the umbu for punishment, the 3rd headmaster was shaking with barely controlled rage. His visit to the hospital afterward confirmed his fears as he saw the doctors hurrying to treat the 2 seriously injured young boys. Then, unable to do much else but get ready for the upcoming council meeting, he went back to his office. His secretary, a chunin who had applied for a desk job, came in when someone knocked on his door. "Headmaster-sama," his secretary responded. Fugaku Fire Clan had ordered an emergency clan heads meeting. The 3rd headmaster moaned, "Damn those bloody fire clans." This was the worst thing about being a headmaster. He was sickened by the political scheming of some of the larger clans, and he suspected that he knew why the emergency meeting had been called. It couldn't have been because the 2 young boys had been attacked, as few clan heads would bother to meet to discuss random violence. Instead, the council would be more concerned with what transpired during the attack. When the 3rd headmaster arrived, the clan leaders had gathered in the clan hall in a rare display of unity. The 3rd headmaster surveyed the area coolly, and it is likely that Fugaku was the one who brought everyone together at such short notice. After all, the military police, who were primarily composed of fire clans, were the ones who had initially located Raito and Neru. As he took his position at the head of the table, the 3rd headmaster cast a somber glance around the council. The 3rd headmaster posed the rhetorical question, "Why is this council called?" as he already knew the answer. Fugaku opened his mouth. "It has come to the clan chief's attention that a new bloodline has emerged in Hyde Ninja Village. All the clan chiefs are gathered here today to address this issue." The lips of the 3rd headmaster pushed together sternly. It seems that a new bloodline was more significant than the fact that a mob tonight gravely injured 2 children. The third headmaster stated, "Yes, it is true, Murei, who was known as Rito in the house, was diagnosed by the head doctor at the hospital of having a bloodline that is closely tied to the spiders. There was no point in concealing this information because by tomorrow, everyone would be aware of the findings, and all bloodlines in Hyde Ninja Village had to be publicly registered." An insect bloodline, then? The Aburame house's head pondered. A boy with a funny name. Where's the boy in question? He's still under treatment in the hospital for his injuries, and according to the matron at the house, he insisted to be called by the name Rito from the day he was able to speak coherently, stated the third headmaster. I've heard that a Chunin instigated an attack on the boy and Uzumaki Naruto. Has the Chunin in question been punished? Replied Shikaku Nara. The Naras, Yamanakas, and Akimikis were among the few clans in Hyde Ninja Village that did not actively harbor animosity toward the demon container. Although they suffered losses during the Kyubi attack, the Naras are a family of thinkers who knew better than to blame a boy who had done nothing wrong. The Yamanakas and Akimikis followed the Naras' example. The third headmaster nodded to the man in question with a tense smile. He has been stripped of his rank and sent to the Umbu for questioning. I see, remarked the chief of the Aburame clan. What are the powers in question, Murei? According to the tests, Murei possesses enhanced speed, strength, and senses along with the ability to emit a web-like substance. He will heal faster than the average human, and there might still be other unknown abilities we have not learned of, the third headmaster stated. He also possesses an innate summon for the spiders. As the clan heads gazed at him, there was stillness. The leader of the Inazaka clan stated in a strained voice, and I've never heard of a summons for spiders, adding that there has not been a case of a person possessing the ability to summon without signing a contract for decades. As you're all aware, the current summoning contracts all over the world always began with one person who was somehow given the ability to summon their own particular creature. No one really knows why the first summoners were able to do what they did, the third headmaster continued. I think you're all well aware that Murei might be the first summoner for the spiders, and only he can say who he would pass the contract to. Well, that's well and good, Headmaster-sama, but let's move on to the important thing, Fugaku said. According to the public records, Murei is the lone survivor of his family. The rest were wiped out 8 years ago in the Kyubi attack. Seeing that he's a bloodline wielder, the law states that. Frowning, the third headmaster stated, I am aware of the law, Fugaku, adding, I was the one who created the law on bloodline wielders. Then you're aware that since he's the only survivor of his bloodline and also a minor who cannot fend for himself, special care must be taken for his survival. Fugaku continued, on behalf of the Fire Clan, I would like to take him in as a member of my clan. The third headmaster's eyes narrowed. He knew that this was what would happen. The Fire Clans were power-hungry and would not accept second best. With the emergence of a new bloodline and summoning contract, it would be advantageous for each clan to adopt the child and, ideally, marry the child within their own clan. I object, stated the Aburame clan's leader. Seeing that the child's abilities are of an insect-type bloodline, it would be prudent to leave that child in the care of the Aburame clan where we could provide more understanding for his powers. The Fire Clans would be able to provide for the boy better. We know thousands of spirit arts. The Inazaka, Nara, Yamanaka, and Akimichi clan chiefs were the only ones remaining impartial as the other clan heads joined in the disputes, and the third headmaster ignored the remainder of the discussion. A knock on the door signaled the arrival of the archivist responsible for the public archives of Hyde Ninja Village. He proceeded to the headmaster and handed him a piece of paper before departing the room. The third headmaster grinned as he examined the newly acquired data. When the third headmaster said, "It seemed that I found a way to resolve this problem," the clan heads stopped arguing and turned to face him. Do all of you agree that Murei should be taken in by one of the clans instead of surviving in the house? He said. Of course, Headmaster-sama, we can't have a repeat of what happened today. This boy contains a new bloodline and a new summon. He must be protected. Fugaku responded. The third headmaster turned to the head of the Nara clan and asked, "Very well then. Shikaku, do you recall Tamae's Nara?" Shikaku Nara questioned, "My great-aunt? What does she have to do with this?" Shikaku's eyes brightened in comprehension as the third headmaster smiled and continued. "She married Naten Ryu, grandfather of Mu Ryu. Mu Ryu is distantly related to the Nara clan, and as such, you will be allowed first choice for the custody of the child. Do you accept?" The head of the Aburame clan sat quietly observing the events as Fugaku spluttered his complaint off to the side. The headmaster gave Shikaku Nara a stern look that threatened to send him to hell if he didn't comply, so he quickly straightened himself after saying, "I see. That's troublesome. Yeah. Truthfully, I have no problem with it. I would need to discuss with my clan, but I foresee no objections on their part," Shikaku Nara answered. Fugaku remarked, "But Headmaster Sama, by law of Hyde Ninja Village, the Nara clan is allowed first choice to the boy based on their distant blood ties," the third headmaster clarified. "This you well know. As such, this is the end of the matter today. Is there anything else that needs to be brought to my attention right now?" "Yes, Headmaster Sama," said the leader of the Aburame clan. "I would like to help with the boys' training with your and Shikaku's consent." The third headmaster grinned as he heard the Aburame clan leader's suggestion. One issue was resolved, and a political quagmire was averted. At least the youngster would be protected from the fire clans, who would use him as a political pawn, with the Naras taking care of him. After the issue was resolved, the third headmaster's mind turned to the two kids who were currently in the hospital, particularly Neru, and he hoped they would be okay. Oh. After 6 days, Raito, wake up. Raito moaned, let me sleep," as someone started to shake him. When Neru's voice cried out, "Aji-san, why is Raito like that? He's been sleeping for days." "Raito is already healing faster than normal people," the voice of the third headmaster remarked, "but most people heal much slower than you do." Neru questioned, "You mean we're special?" Raito grabbed the pillow beneath his head and hurled it at Neru's voice. "Umph!" exclaimed Neru. Raito woke up and grumbled, "I swear you come here every morning just to annoy me. I can't sleep with you chatting here." "That's because you're still in the hospital. I got well on my second day here," said Neru. "But it's your 6th day already and you still have to stay here. The house is very boring without you." Even if no one dared to mistreat Neru at the house anymore, they still had a propensity to ignore him and leave him on his own, so Raito groaned, understanding how he felt. "The wound is nearly healed now," Raito said, tapping the knife wound on his chest. "Well, I am trying my best to recover," he said, turning to face the headmaster. "Headmaster Sama, can I leave the hospital today?" "Well, it just happened that I had a talk with the doctor just now. You'll most probably be allowed to leave if there are no unforeseen problems," the third headmaster replied with a grin. He let out a sigh of relief as his expression changed. "But there are some things that we need to talk about. Neru, you remember Shikaku-san who came with us to the hospital? He should be talking to the doctor. Get him here, all right?" Neru exclaimed with a smile as he hurried out of the room. "All right, Aji-san." Something about the elderly man's expression made Raito feel exhausted as he watched the headmaster with a sinking sense. "Is it about the villagers? I already said Neru and I did nothing to provoke them, and I am really sorry about hurting them. Even though I don't remember summoning the spider you told me about," Raito answered quickly, and then added quickly, "And they do deserve what they got." "Now, Raito, calm down. This isn't about the villagers, though I've seen to it that the people responsible are punished," the third headmaster comforted him. "But the emergence of your unique abilities must be carefully cultivated."
Ashikaku.
"You're here. That's good." A man in his early 30s with a fishnet vest entered the room, followed inquisitively by Neru. Shikaku continued, "Headmaster Sama, I assume this is Mu Ryu," as he turned to face Raito. Raito clarified, "My name is Raito," and turned back to the headmaster with a worried expression. So what is it that you want to tell me? The headmaster looked at Naruto and coughed uneasily before looking directly into Raito's eyes. Hyde Ninja Village is a village of ninjas. As such, we look upon people with bloodline limits as the treasures of Hyde Ninja Village. The headmaster started out, though Raito understood that the news wasn't going to be positive. Raito, you have a unique bloodline limit. Added with the fact that you are the first summoner of the spiders, the council had agreed to put you under the protection of ninjas who are capable of looking after you. Shikaku is your distant uncle. By the decree of the village council, from today onwards, you'll be living with him. While Raito only gazed fearfully at the headmaster, Naruto paled at the news. Don't worry, Raito, Shikaku said. The Nara clan has agreed on this. From now on, you'll be one of us. Raito glanced at Naruto, who was remarkably silent over the news. His eyes were sad and fixed on the ground. Raito replied, "No," so loudly that Naruto looked at him in disbelief. "I am not going to leave him alone at the house. We are now sworn brothers," Raito said. "I understand your concern, but unfortunately, your adoption is by the mandate of the council. It cannot be lightly put aside," the headmaster remarked gravely, although there was a slight sparkle in his eyes. Raito snarled, "Then I'll flee," adding, "I'm not abandoning Naruto." "This is troublesome," Shikaku murmured. "Look, there's no need for talk about running away. Naruto can also come join us as an honorable member of the family." "Your clan," the headmaster said startledly. "Shikaku, are you sure?" Shikaku turned to face Raito and Naruto and said, "Well, let's get Raito out of the hospital and I'll bring the two of you to meet my family." Shikaku rubbed his brow wearily and said, "My wife will be fine with it. As for the clan, I'll deal with them." With tears in his eyes, Naruto questioned, "You really mean it? You're taking both of us?" Shikaku stated solemnly, "I don't break my word. Let's see if we can get you two some new clothes now." "Oh." After his father brought the two boys home and informed him that they were now Shikamaru's brothers and members of the Nara clan, Shikamaru regarded them with suspicion. His mother took it well and told him to take the two boys to the bathhouse to clean up before dragging his father into the kitchen. Shikamaru could hear loud voices, but he was unable to understand their words. Shikamaru paused outside the building in question and stated, "This is the bathhouse. You can clean up here." The boy named Naruto hurried inside wearing his new clothes and exclaimed, "Wow, your own bathhouse. This is so nice." "Thank you," smiled Raito, the other lad, who nodded to Shikamaru. As the door closed behind them, Shikamaru thought, "That Naruto kid is just too loud and excitable. Living with him would probably be a headache." However, Raito appeared to be the complete opposite of Naruto, calm and mature. Shikamaru deliberated whether or not he could play chess. "Oh." "Shikaku, what do you think you're doing bringing that boy back with you?" Yoshino said, "You know how the elders feel about him." It was the only way to get Raito Ryu to join the clan. He refused to leave Naruto behind. "Apparently they're quite close," Shikaku said, wiping his eyes wearily. "I thought the boy is called Ryu, and that isn't a reason." "Shikaku," irritated Yoshino, "have you given any thought about how the social standing of the clan will be affected by adopting that boy as one of our own?" "Ryu insisted on being called by the name Raito, and I've agreed with him. We'll continue to let him use it," Shikaku grumbled. "Don't worry, dear. I am the clan head. I'll explain my decision to adopt Naruto to the elders. You may be the clan head now, but another of your cousins can be easily chosen to take over your position." Yoshino glared at him. "Honestly, I don't mind taking the boy in, but why give him false hopes when you know that the elders will force you to put him back into the house anyway?" "Because now I have the excuse to adopt him without anyone suspecting my intentions, and because Naruto is the only son of the fourth headmaster," Shikaku said with a sigh after turning to face his wife. "Oh." Shikaku approached the elders and the other Nara clan council members. who were seated in a circle. He gave them a small bow before taking the seat designated for the clan leader. "I think you know why you're called here Shikaku," a clan elder remarked in a gruff tone. "Let us dispense with the formalities and explain to us why you chose to invite trouble to the clan by adopting the demon container." As he began distributing the papers in his hands, Shikaku remarked icily, "Very well, council members. The information I am passing to you now is an SS rank top secret, one that I uncovered after many months of research. Anyone who betrays this secret will be put to death by the clan," Shikaku warned. "What?" Shikaku exclaimed as he noticed one of his uncles staring at him in disbelief. "Shikaku, what have you done? The clan has never before held any secrets of that magnitude." "I'll explain in time, elders. Do you still remember that Kushina, wife of the fourth headmaster, was supposedly pregnant and about to go into labor during the time Kyubi attacked the village?" Shikaku asked, glancing at the council members to make sure he had their attention. "Of course we remembered. It was such an auspicious event that was ruined by the arrival of that demon," one of the elders argued. "It is another reason why the demon container must never be allowed a place in our clan." Shikaku gave them a chilly look as some of the council members spoke loudly and expressed their agreements. "I've always wondered, what happened to the baby?" The third headmaster had told everyone that the baby died, along with Kushina during the labor, which coincidentally happened the night when the Kyubi attacked our village, shrugged Shikaku. "There was never any funeral for the baby, and as time passed, he was forgotten as Hyde Ninja Village struggled to rebuild from the Kyubi attack. I felt something wasn't right, and weeks after the attack, I did some digging on my own, searching hospital records and the old residence of the fourth head master. Shikaku, you know I will always stand by your decisions, but you're not making a strong argument for your case, which is the adoption of Naruto Uzumaki." A cousin of his intervened. "What does the dead baby of the fourth headmaster have to do with anything? Read the reports I've passed to you. The Nara clan had always prided itself on being a family of thinkers and keepers of knowledge." Shikaku remarked with a bowing head. "You can come to your own conclusion on the reports yourself." Shikaku closed his eyes and continued his silent meditation as a number of the council members gave him suspicious glances, but everyone else started reading the reports. "This! Oh my God!" As they completed the reports, a number of council members exclaimed, "This cannot be true!" There was a flurry of activity as the members started debating each other vehemently. Through the loud and frantic cries of the council members, Shikaku's cool-headed voice cut through. "Why would I lie to you about a matter of such importance? Why do you think I said before I hand out the reports that this is an SS rank secret?" The elder who had raised his voice hesitated before continuing, understanding on his face. "But if this information is true, why would the third headmaster lie to us? Unless the fourth headmaster had made many enemies in his life, if news that the child of the fourth was still alive. There would have been many assassination attempts, which without the fourth or his wife around to protect the child, the baby would have died sooner or later. Not even the Umbu could be around every hour of the day to safeguard him." A different council member wrote. "But Shikaku, how can you be sure that the information you've found is accurate?" "In the brashness of my youth, after I've suspected a cover-up, I've broke into the headmaster's secret library to uncover the truth. Those are copies of what I found there," Shikaku grumbled. One of the elders angrily remarked, "Shikaku, the Nara clan may be charged with treason if the third headmaster learns of this." Shikaku said wearily, "I have no intention of telling the clan members about this secret that I've discovered in the first place. Initially, when I realized how dangerous this information could be, I had considered taking it with me to the afterlife. However, when I had the opportunity to adopt Naruto Uzumaki, the clan wanted to know why I did it. After much consideration, I concluded that it would be best if the clan knew the truth because it would save us all a great deal of trouble and explanations. I'm sure you haven't forgotten the debt that the Nara clan and many others owed to the fourth headmaster, and I trust that you can all keep the secret I've given you and make the right decisions. I knew that despite our individual shortcomings, we Naras are all loyal to our clan and village." After a moment of awkward quiet during which no one spoke, one of the elders murmured in a guilty tone. Who would have ever thought that the demon container is the child of our most important hero? No wonder the third headmaster had always told the citizens that the child is the legacy of the fourth. The older man sighed as he let out, "None of us guessed the truth. To think of how we've treated the child all those years. The Naras will always do the right thing. I will stand by your decision to adopt the child. It's the least we can do for the memory of the fourth headmaster, by protecting his son, Naruto Uzumaki." Shikaka smiled slightly as the other council members expressed their agreement, feeling as though a weight had been removed from him. At least the secret was no longer solely his to carry, and Naruto Uzumaki would find a home with the Naras for as long as he lived. Oh. The third headmaster looked down at his crystal ball, which was adorned with a picture of the Nara clan council meeting. One of his inventions, the telescope spirit arts, was able to transmit noises and images of distant events. Who would have guessed that Shikaku would have discovered the mystery of Naruto's birth and kept it a secret for so long? The third headmaster rubs his head wearily. All of the members of the Nara clan council were now aware of it. If it had happened to any other clan, the third headmaster might have been concerned, but the Naras were the least ambitious and one of the few clans that were devoted to him and the fourth. Shikaku was also one of the few reliable ninjas in this generation. After learning about Naruto's ancestry, the Nara clan members' opinions changed, leading the third headmaster to question if he had made the proper decision in keeping Naruto's relationship with the fourth a secret. However, he then considered the fire clans who would have tried to take guardianship of Naruto if the truth were known, as well as the many enemies of the fourth who would have pursued Naruto in an attempt to have him killed. In the back of his mind, third headmaster knew that the reasons he had kept Naruto's birth a secret were still valid, and he might only reveal the secret to the public once Naruto was all grown up and capable of caring for himself. In order to ensure that the Nara clan would not make a mistake, the third headmaster would order them to undo the spirit arts that contained the sounds and images in the crystal ball. He would then allow them to maintain their secret for a bit longer and entrust Naruto to their care. Trust had to start somewhere, after all, and it's past time that Naruto got a family that would look after him. As he put down the stack of reports he was reading, the third headmaster heard a gentle knock on his door and looked up. "Come in," the third headmaster yelled, unsure of who it may be. The door opened, and a woman with pink hair entered. She anxiously adjusted her glasses as she approached Sortobi's desk and stopped in front of him. The third headmaster identified her as one of the ninja library's assistant archivists. "Headmaster Sama, here are the reports you requested," said the woman while placing them on the table as the third headmaster started to read them. "Basically, we were able to discover that Murei was not the only spider summoner in history. He was, however, the first person to summon a spider without a previous summoning contract. The clan Hiroyoshi, who originally lived in Wind Country, supposedly tricked a lesser spider summoning contract from the spiders 200 years ago. According to the old histories, in retaliation for that trickery, the whole clan was cursed with a deformation bloodline. All direct descendants from the clan bear 6 or even 8 hands in some cases." Looking over the reports, the third headmaster frowned and remarked, "I see. That's strange. If they were a ninja clan, I should have at least heard of them, but I've no recollection of such a clan's existence." "That's because the clans secluded themselves after they were cursed," the archivist replied with respect. "The last report we had of the clan was a note that the whole clan was wiped out after its leader angered the Wind Daimyo. Supposedly no more members of the clan survived the culling. That incident happened 50 years back, so it's no surprise you've never heard of the clan." That would explain why there's no news of the clan," the third headmaster nodded. "Good work. I'll read through the report. You may leave now," he added. The archivist said, "Thanks, Headmaster Sama," and gently walked out, shutting the door behind her. The third headmaster looked at the reports and thought that Raito had nothing to do with the Hiroyoshi clan. The only similarity between the two was the use of spider summons. However, he was troubled by a word in the reports: lesser spider summon. Does this imply that there is a greater spider summon? Raito was the one who received the spider summon and the spider bloodline, which brought third head master peace of mind despite his inability to comprehend what that would mean. From the years he had watched Naruto grow up, Raito was always by Naruto's side, almost like a brother except in blood. With the prestige Raito now possessed and the friendship he shares with Naruto, Naruto's life should be better than it was before. Moreover, the fact that the Nara clan was now keeping watch over the two of them gave third headmaster a sense of ease he hadn't experienced in years. The third headmaster muttered in a little prayer. Hopefully, things would go smoothly from now on. As he went back to his paperwork, putting the reports he was holding away to be filed later. Oh. Shikaku led the two boys into their new room and said, "This will be your room, Naruto and Raito." Shikamaru was following them, looking bored, and he had brought his futon with him, dragging it after him per his father's instructions. "I thought the two of you would prefer to be together since everything is still new to you. In the future, if you want separate rooms, just let me know," Shikaku said. As Naruto gazed in wonder at having their own room, Raito said, "It's all right, Nara, sir. Naruto and I like this room very much. Thank you for letting us stay here." Naruto had spent his entire childhood in the home dormitory, so the thought of sleeping apart from people seemed odd to him. In a gentle reprimand, Shikaku shoved Shikamaru forward and handed him a clock. "Now, Raito, we've been through this before. Drop the formalities and call me father, we're family now," he said. "Shikamaru will be sleeping in with you three for the night. I expect all of you to play nice and get to know each other. Lights out at 10, got it?" "Yes, father," Raito and Shikamaru echoed while Naruto kept looking around, still in awe of getting his own room. Raito remarked, "Come on, Naruto, let's prepare our futons," moving the two futons that were spread out on the floor to give Shikamaru a spot to rest his. Naruto responded, "Oh, all right," and hurried to assist. After just a few minutes of setting up their resting space, the three boys sat on their sleeping mats and gazed at one another. "We already introduced ourselves this afternoon," Shikamaru said, yawning. "So what should we do now?" "Raito can tell a bedtime story," Naruto said excitedly, staring at Raito. "Raito's really good at telling stories. He used to tell bedtime stories for everyone in the dormitory before we sleep every night." Curious, Shikamaru said, "Bedtime stories?" to see out what tales Raito was familiar with. Shikamaru shrugged before following Naruto's lead and crawling into his futon. "Okay, I'm going to tell you the story of Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a long time there was an evil witch," Raito said with an air of adulthood. "So if we're going to be telling stories, the two of you better get into your futons." At the odd word, Shikamaru questioned, "What's a witch?" From the side, Naruto wisely remarked, "A witch is like a very old ninja hag who is a woman. Raito invented her." Shikamaru responded, "Ah, I see," and then stopped talking to allow Raito to finish the story. Raito continued in a gentle voice as he recounted the well-known tale of his world. The witch lived in a house made of cake and candy, and then Hansel and Gretel tricked the witch into the oven and escaped, and they lived happily ever after. Shikamaru was already sound asleep when Raito glanced at the two boys by his side and grinned at the gentle snores coming from Naruto. For a brief moment, he sat in the quiet of the room, thinking about his future. He now knew what he wanted to be when he grew up in this world. He would become a ninja so that no one could ever hurt him or Naruto again, and then there was the giant spider that had protected them. As Raito crawled into his futon to sleep, his final thought was that he would find a way to call the spider again so that they could talk. He had a lot of questions, including why he was here. Oh. Hundreds of spiders gathered before the spider sage, the eldest of all their races, while giant shadows crept through the enormous dome beneath Wind Country's sweeping sands. "The greater and lesser spiders are gathered before you, sage of all spiders," the boss spider declared formally. She was the only spider in the group to grow to the sage's immense height and width. "Ah, yes. It has been long since all of us have gathered together. Far too long." The spider sage let out a sigh, her tone reaching out to everyone in the enormous hollow dome. The last time we've gathered was 8 years ago, when we've pooled our essences to plead with the primal spider for help, to prevent the future we've seen from happening. And in the end our prayer was answered. The primal spider sent us one of its champions, a human male from another time and space. Reborn as a baby, we've kept silent watch on him, and a week ago, Grienda, one of the spider scouts watching over our savior, made contact with him. He has agreed to the contract. He is now our summoner, and his thread is ours to weave. You are all summoned here so that we can begin the great weaving, to peer through the sands of time and all the possible futures, to use this new thread we've been given to prevent the future we've seen 8 years past from happening. The spider sage continued with a gloomy tone. But before that, Grienda, I need you to go to the human world for one more task. Seek out the last survivor of the cursed clan who had tricked us centuries ago. Bring him to me. I have use for that soiled thread. He shall be part of the 20 that will change the future. Oh. Orochimaru grimaced as he brushed the dirt of the dilapidated village off his shirt. If it weren't for the information from his spy network, he wouldn't be here. It was reported that an orphan from the Hiroishi clan was living here. Orochimaru didn't want the child for any humanitarian reasons. Rather, he valued the child's bloodline, which was allegedly the only one of its kind left in the world. The child would make excellent experiment material, and if the bloodline turned out to be inferior, he could always use the child as cannon fodder. When you consider that the child was allegedly an orphan and an outcast, he's likely seeking attention. Orochimaru would only need to give the child the necessities and display some surface-level kindness to turn the child into a devoted soldier of his. Orochimaru licked his lips as his mouth widened in a smile at the thought. As he was walking through the streets, he soon spotted the child. The villagers gave the boy a wide berth and gave him disgusted looks, which made it easy for Orochimaru to locate the boy. The boy was filthy and scrawny, and he was sitting in a corner begging for food with a look of desperation on his face. Orochimaru grinned, realizing that the boy was already broken and would be even easier to control. Orochimaru was about to approach the boy when a black puff of smoke engulfed him. The villagers screamed as they saw the enormous black spider that had materialized, looming over the boy. Orochimaru froze as he stared at the spider summon. He knew the Hiroishi clan had it, but he didn't know the boy could use it. He doubted the boy even had the necessary core energy to perform a summon, so why was the spider here at this moment? As the spider addressed the youngster who was gazing at it in wonder, a distinct, melodious voice could be heard in the air. The spider pulled one of its legs closer to the boy and stated, "Hiroishi Kidomaru, you've been called to the sanctuary by the spider sage. Hold on to my leg and let's be off from here." As he hurled an exploding tag forward to divert the spider's attention, while he rushed forward with core energy enhanced speed, Orochimaru's eyes widened. He had no idea what the sanctuary was, but he knew that if he didn't act quickly, the boy would be snatched out of his hands. He was more than a little surprised when multiple balls of webbing shot out from the spider summon, hitting the exploding tag off the air while Orochimaru had to leap out of the way to avoid the others. As it watched Orochimaru, the spider sneered, "This child does not belong to you, summoner of snakes. Stay out of the affairs of the spiders, or we shall cut your thread from the great web." Before it vanished in a cloud of smoke along with the youngster, a wave of murderous intent erupted from the spider and swept across Orochimaru. Something appeared to be afoot, and Orochimaru's eyes narrowed as he hissed in frustration at the sight of his prey vanishing. It would appear that he would have to investigate the spider summons to find out what they were up to. Oh. Even though the Nara clan was wealthy, they, like the majority of ninja clans, do not keep servants out of fear of betrayal. After all, who would really know if the servants were merely spies sent to steal clan secrets? The bacon sizzled on the pan as Yoshino hurried around the kitchen making breakfast for 5. The Nara clan as a whole disapproves of the habit of larger clans, such as the Fire and Hyuga, using their weaker and non-ninja members as servants. Yoshino slapped her husband's head as he slept on the table, huffing, "You could help, you know, you lazy bum." Shikaku halted, snapping his head up as he realized what had just escaped his lips. Ah, I mean, women are supposed to serve men. Yoshino's left eyelid twitched as she held the frying pan menacingly at her husband. Yoshino angrily glared at her husband, saying, I am sorry, but I thought that you were saying something about women supposed to serve men? In an attempt to come up with something to please his wife, Shikaku stammered out, I mean, you are the most wonderful, beautiful wife in the whole wide world. Boom! A huge explosion heard from upstairs, causing the house to tremble. As Yoshino turned to face her husband, her rage quickly turned to worry. The boys! Yoshino exclaimed as she hurried upstairs, holding the frying pan menacingly in front of her. Shikaku hurriedly grabbed a few kitchen knives and trailed behind her. Yoshino arrived at the boys' room and slammed the doors open, the frying pan poised in front of her, ready to slap any intruder. She was surprised to see the black smoke billowing out of the room, and as she gazed in shock at what she saw, her frying pan fell from her hands. Shikaku yelled, Yoshino, what's going on? As he protectively shoved his wife behind him, prepared to handle the intruders. A golden-brown spider the size of the boys said, Greetings, Nara clan. From his spot next to a startled Raito. The three boys had all exited their futons, and Raito was using his little frame to protect Shikamaru and Naruto behind him. Pardon my entrance and all the smoke. I am still young and am still learning how to walk between the worlds, he said. Ah, it is okay, Shikaku said, staring at the spider in disbelief. Yoshino pushed him away abruptly and ran in the spider's direction, whereupon he saw the filthy and undernourished child cowering behind the spider. Shikaku blinked when he realized the child had 6 hands. Yoshino screamed, Oh, you poor thing! Who did this to you? As she hurried to the child's side and started examining his body. The youngster resisted her touch uncomfortably, but Yoshino held him tightly. Her eyes hardened at the scars on his 3 hands, which appeared to be belt beatings. The golden-brown spider replied, Hiroyoshi Kidomaru is an orphan, last of his clan. As he moved a large scroll off its back and gave it to Shikaku, the spider sage asked me to pass this message to you. In exchange for you taking care of the boy and Raito Parker, the spider sage will allow 1 direct descendant from the Nara clan in each generation to sign the lesser spider summoning contract. Are you okay with this? Of course we will take care of the boy, Yoshino stated, maintaining a firm hold on Kidomaru, who appeared to want to be somewhere else. Raito is already our charge, though you've got his name wrong. Is there anything else you wish to tell us? If not, I am going to treat this boy's wounds and get some food into him, Yoshino said, giving her husband a look that threatened to hurt him if he said otherwise. As Shikamaru and Naruto looked at the golden-brown spider with interest, the spider said, I have one last message for Raito Parker, apparently ignoring Yoshino's correction of the name. You are the only one capable of summoning both the lesser and the greater spiders. That summoning contract is bond to you in blood and soul. Only your direct descendants will have access to the contract, and you are unable to add anyone who is not of your blood into the contract, the spider revealed. I need to know why I am her, Raito interrupted, his expression displaying agitation. I don't care about that. What you wish to know will be answered when you've managed to summon one of us by your own strength, as per decree by the spider sage. You will need to prove to us that you are worthy of being the summoner of the spiders. We will speak again once you've accomplished that task. The golden-brown spider entered before Raito finished. Farewell, Raito Parker. May your thread stays as bright as the Great One says. A powerful gust of wind forced Raito back, but when the spider fled with a tiny explosion and more black smoke, he let out a choked yell as he surged forward, hoping to catch it before it could escape. Yoshino hurried the filthy 6-handed youngster out of the room and down the stairs to be fed and cleaned up while Shikaku gazed curiously at his new foster son. It didn't tell me anything, Raito grumbled in irritation. Raito offered a seemingly defenseless shrug, and Naruto inquired suspiciously from the side. Why did the spider call you Raito Parker? I have no idea, Raito replied with a confused tone. I was hoping it could tell me why they chose me to be their summoner. I guess I really have to learn how to summon them first before they'll reply me. Years of ninja training had taught Shikaku that Raito was concealing something, but he had more pressing issues to attend to at the moment. He bent down and carefully examined the lesser spider summoning scroll. I need to go and have a word with your uncles and the headmaster, Shikaku said, turning to Shikamaru, Naruto, and Raito. Boys, go downstairs and help your mom settle the new boy in, he said. Naruto smiled and hurried down the stairs, with Shikamaru and Raito after him slowly. Okay, he murmured. Shikaku's hands flashed into the hand seals for the body flicker technique as they departed, leaving an empty room in their wake. The wind swirled as he teleported away.